All right, so the iPad is dying. In my opinion, the iPad has peaked as a product. We went an entire 365 days in 2023 without seeing a new iPad, and that's something that is pretty notable. This isn't a video on why the iPad's bad or why you should never use the iPad. It's still something that I use in my daily life every single day to do so many of my tasks. This is more of a video about how Apple has gone off track a little bit in trying to make the iPad an experience that it's not intended to be and not supposed to be. Ultimately, what I'm trying to say is Apple is trying to make the iPad as close as a computer as they possibly can. And I'm a victim of that. I used this iPad instead of a laptop until I got my M1 Max for the longest time. I also believed that until I got my hands on a MacBook and I really realized how good the software is on a computer and how different the experience is from working on a tablet. And your experience gets close to a laptop even with pro apps, but you're not quite there. And that's what I want to talk about in this video. So the first thing I want to talk about is letting the tablet be a tablet. And what I mean by that is Steve Jobs had an intent when this came out. There was a laptop, there was a phone, and then there was a tablet. And these tablets ultimately were supposed to be a middle ground. It wasn't an iPhone, but it wasn't a laptop. And it was supposed to get you in between. It was supposed to be that piece of tech that you lounge with, you sit around, you consume content. You're able to later on in the generations write on and use it as a note-taking tool. And slowly as time has gone on, and in my opinion, Tim Cook has taken over, this device has gone more towards what the experience could be to a laptop. It's almost like over time, Apple hasn't been able to make up their mind. They haven't been able to make up their mind if they want this to be a tablet or if they want this to be a laptop. One thing you notice is, especially in this last year, the question was, and I had the question too, is if we move pro apps onto the iPad, specifically the iPad Pro, how would they translate to our everyday workflow? And how would they translate to using it instead of using a laptop? We saw DaVinci Resolve. We saw Final Cut Pro come to this thing. And as you could use them, there was a lot of features you couldn't use. So at the end of the day, it became a way of doing a piece of the process and not a way of doing the full process. So as you got pro apps, they were pro apps that were limited. We saw it with the Magic Keyboard. Now, don't get me wrong, the Magic Keyboard is a great device. I had one for the longest time before I sold it, but it was another example on how can we take the keyboard that has done so well on the MacBook and move it onto the iPad. And that's what it did. The Apple Pencil is another example of that. This is something different where it's so tablet specific, it just works. And it's one of the only accessories they've come out with over the years that completely makes sense to a tablet line. The reason I have two iPads is I have the iPad Pro simply because when I want to do pro-like tasks, when I want to do sketching or drawing on a bigger screen with a lot more horsepower, I'm able to do that. But when I want to get my daily tasks done, I want to just do some scrolling, I want to do some consumption of YouTube or whatever it may be, that's where the iPad mini comes in place and it acts more as a tablet. So how do we fix this? The iPad line is confusing as all hell. There's like 9 iPads out. You can go into an Apple store, you can say, can I get an iPad? And the options are endless. And unless you know exactly what you're getting, you know the nerdiness behind it, you don't really know what you're getting. So how do you fix that? You redo the iPad line. You have the first iPad, the iPad mini. This is your iPad, there's no Apple silicone chip in it, and it's the most tablet-like piece of tech you can get, because I still think there's an appetite for the iPad mini. And then you have the iPad, and the iPad comes in 11 inches and 12.9 inches, and it has the same bones that the iPad 10th generation has. So you don't get the Apple silicone chip, you don't get the Magic Keyboard, but you get all those things that make a baseline tablet a baseline tablet. And then there's still the pros out there. There's still the people that sketch. There's still the people that draw. There's the people that are deep in Procreate and use the iPad for reasons like that. And that's where the iPad Pro comes in. With the iPad Pro, we have Apple silicone in it. We have it at 11 and 12.9 inches. We have those few pro apps that work. We have a pro Apple Pencil. And then finally, we have the Magic Keyboard, so we have that typing experience if you want it. So that's how you clean it up. You have 3 levels of iPad and 5 iPads altogether, and it's a lot easier to choose from. It's a lot easier to digest. And I think it would give each iPad its own tier of reasoning on why it would work within the tier you're looking for. So finally, I kind of want to talk about why it's dying. And I brought it up earlier. We went 365 days without seeing a new iPad. And for a product that is a marquee product in the Apple ecosystem, that's rare. That's not normal. Over time, we saw the iPhone evolve. We saw it evolve from what it's become over these 15 or so iPhones to what it is now. And we've seen it evolve to what people want. We've seen it evolve to what other companies have done and them doing it the Apple way. We've seen the evolution. But when we talk about the iPad, we've seen an evolution that has started to steer in a different way. We started to steer away from the fact that it is a tablet. We started to steer away from the fact that we need to focus on an iOS that is tablet friendly. For example, when we saw Stage Manager, we were all excited right away, and then we used it and we were like, this is just taking what we can do with a Mac and trying to fit it into an iPad versus building something specifically for an iPad. So somewhere in the middle of these iPads coming out, I feel like we've moved away from what a tablet is meant to be, what a tablet experience is meant to be, and you go back to the roots of why you're using a tablet and you use it like a tablet's meant to be used. You find a lot more use with these things, and that's ultimately what I've noticed over time. That's my thoughts on kind of the state of the iPad right now. Let me know down in the comments what kind of iPad you have and if you agree or disagree with kind of the state of the iPad right now. But with that, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you do not miss a video on this channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.